This video is for Lesson 4-3, Chapter 4, Lesson 3. Today's learning target is I can multiply fractions. Please open your textbook to page 273 and get your materials ready. A chameleon's body is about 1/2 of the length of its tongue. A certain chameleon has a tongue that is 2/3 of a foot long. So let's use an area model to show 1/2 of 2/3. And if you're not aware, the word of means multiply. Okay, so we can write the same problem as 1/2 times 2/3. So let's go ahead and use a model for this one. And it says go ahead and divide a rectangle into 2 rows. So rows usually are horizontal. And then they said divide it into 3 columns. So shade in a rectangle that is 1/2 unit wide by 2/3 long. So we need to go 1/2, be up here, and we only get to do this top part, that's 1/2, and 2/3 of that section is here, because we're talking about half of the rows, 1 out of the 2 rows, but only 2/3 of it. So referring to this model, the section that was shaded represents 1/2 times 2/3. So what fraction represents 1/2 of 2/3? Well, if we look at all the pieces, there are 6 total chunks, and 2 of those 6 are colored in. But we all know that 2 and 6 can be divided both by 2, and so our final answer is 1/3. So let's take a look at some problems. To multiply fractions, we simply multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. We can use a model, like we did on the previous problem, or we can use numbers, or we can even think of it as symbols. So if we were taking a model and we're multiplying 2/5 and 1/2, then we would cut the rectangle into half, into 2 rows, and then we would cut them into each 5 sections. And they wanted, of the top row, only 2 out of those 5. So we could say that 2 out of the 10 sections are colored in, or 1/5 when we simplify. We could do this with numbers as well. 2/5 times 1/2, we simply multiply the numerators, 2 times 1 and 5 times 2 on the denominators, and we can simplify. We can say it with symbols. A times B, or C, excuse me, is what we do on top, and on the bottom B and D. Don't worry about that. So here they showed us on this one how to fill in a model. They'd like us to take 1/3 times 1/4, and I'd like you to write this down. This is the same thing, excuse me, 1/3 of 1/4. Remember, of equals multiply. So using this model, they said that we're going to cut it into 4 rows. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and I'm only going to focus my eyes here on this top portion, the top row. 1 row, that's all we can look at. And then they told us to go ahead and cut the next one into 3 columns, because I'm looking at the denominator. The denominator always tells us how many parts to cut things into, and I only get 1 of those. So we're focusing our eyes just up into this little square. So we can say that 1/3 times 1/4 is equal to 1 out of 12, because there was 12 boxes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 boxes, and I only have 1 out of 12. Now, most of the time we don't take time to draw pictures, so we simply use, so looking at the same problem, 1/3 times 1/4, we simply take and multiply the numerators, 1 times 1, and then we multiply the denominators, 3 times 4. And so 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 4 is 12. And we can't simplify it, so that's our final answer. Let's take a look. So if we have 1/2 times 3/5, what we're going to do is take 1 times 3 and 2 times 5, and we're going to get 3 over 15. Now both of those can be divided by 3, so our final answer is 1/5. Why don't you go ahead and try solving B and C on your own, then turn on the recording when you're ready to check your answers. So if you multiply 1/3 times 3/4, you get 3/12, which then simplifies to 1/4. If you take 2/3 times 5/6, you get 10/18, which then simplifies to 5/9. So there is a shortcut as we get larger and larger numbers. If the numerators and denominators have a common factor you can simplify before you multiply, we can do that. Remember that factors are two or more of the same numbers multiplied together to form a product. Now I have to be honest, I don't like this model at all, so I'd like you to cross it out and do it my way. 2/3 times 5/6. You're going to focus your eyes at our cross products. 3 and 5, can we divide them by any factor other than 1? And in this case, the answer is no. Now looking across this way, I see a 2 and a 6. They're both even, so I know I can divide them by 2. So I'm going to do that ahead of time. I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2. So when I rewrite my fractions, I will have 2 divided by 2, which is now 1 over the 3. And the 5 stayed the same, but the 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So my answer is 5/9. And because I can't simplify that any further, I'm good. The reason we do this ahead of time is so that we get down to a simplified answer ahead of time. We won't always have nice small numbers like these to recognize our factors. As they get larger in our homework, this is going to help us get down to our most simplified version of the fraction. It will save you time and effort. So here they have an example. We have 3/4 times 5/6, and remember that would be the same thing as saying 3/4 of 5/6, because of means multiply. Okay, so ahead of time they showed us here that when you line them up, the 3 and the 6 can be both divided by 2, or excuse me, 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 leaves us with 2. The 4 and the 5 can't be touched because the only factor they share is a 1. So now we can finish multiplying. 1 times 5 is 5. 4 times 2 is 8. And 5 and 8 can't be simplified, so that's our final answer. Now what would happen if we didn't simplify? Well, we would have 3 times 5 over 4 times 6. And we get 15 over 24. Well, at this point then we have to remember to check our factors. And 15 and 24 don't look all that compatible, but we can divide them both by 3. And so 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 24 divided by 3 is 8. So I get the same answer either way. What's nice about simplifying ahead of time is it hopefully gets us down to our final answer. We don't have to do the simplifying like we do over here. So let's give it a try. Now this one brings us back to our problems from the last chapter, where we had a whole number. But remember, we don't have to give up. All we have to do is put that 18 over 1, make it into a fraction. So we're going to rewrite it as 4/9 times 18 over 1. Then they go ahead and show us how they can simplify that the 4 and the 1 can't be simplified, but the 9 and the 18, we can divide them both by 9 and simplify down to 1 and the 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, and 1 times 1 is 1, which gives us 8 when we simplify. We would never leave our answer as an improper fraction. So let's give it a try. 3/4 times 4/9 will be 4 times 9 down here. So looking at them, the 3 and the 9, I can divide them both by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. But I also notice that 4s, we can divide them both by 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 4 divided by 4 again is 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. So my final answer is 1/3. So let's just take a look at this one. What if I didn't simplify? What would happen? 3/4 times 4/9 is 3 times 4, and 4 times 9. And we get 12 over 36. And then hopefully you can recognize that we could divide them both by 12 and get 1/3 as our final answer. But do you see how much nicer our work is if we go ahead and simplify ahead of time? It's really helpful. Do you have to do it this way? No. But it's a nicer way. So why don't you go ahead and try E and F yourself. So if you take 5/6 times 9/10, you can simplify the 6 and the 9 by dividing by 3, and 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. And if you can simplify the 5 and the 10 by dividing by 5, and you get 1 over and 2, and so you get 3/4. Over here on this problem, 3 over 5 times 10 over 1. We change that whole number to a fraction right here. So 3 times 10, and 5 times 1. Well, the 5 and the 10 can be both divided by 5, so we get 1 and 2 remaining, and the 3 and the 1 have to stay the same. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 1 times 1 is 1. 6 divided by 1 is 6. So let's take a look at a story problem. Frank had 1/2 of, so this is important information, of tells me I'm going to multiply, of the lawn left to mow. On Saturday, he mowed 2/3 of what was left. What fraction of the entire lawn did Frank mow? So it's 1/2 of 2/3. So 1 times 2 and 2 times 3. We can divide the 2's both by 1 and get 1 for the remaining factor. The 1 and 3 have to stay the same. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 3 is 3. So Frank mowed 1/3 of the lawn. So go ahead and find the 4-3 practice assignment and give it a shot.